Welcome to the Northwest Podcast. I'm Tanis, and I'm going to spend the next few minutes sharing my knowledge with you from years as a self-employed photographer and website designer. I'll share stories, give you my most helpful advice that I absolutely learned the hard way, probably more than once, and once in a while I'll dive into the technical side of photography, websites, and marketing. Let's get into today's topic. Not long after I'd moved to the West Coast, I found an old weathered rail tie. I packed it into the back of my little car and took it home with me, feeling like this was a really special treasure. At the time, I was renting a room behind someone's garage. I had contacted them from Saskatoon in response to a Kijiji ad and arrived late at night with my whole world in my car, so I didn't know anything about the apartment. It was a narrow room with a tiny kitchenette. I parked on the cul-de-sac out front because the two adults in the house had 4 vehicles in the driveway and 2 Harleys in the garage that they would start up early every Saturday morning. While they were gone, their daughter would play Carol of the Bells on the electric keyboard in the room above my bed. She played the first line on repeat, and she would loudly sing so badly. I was starting a fresh phase of life that felt like I was in control because I'd made the decision to move to BC on my own. 2.5 years earlier, I had moved from Waterloo to Saskatoon with just my suitcase and an envelope of cash some friends and family had given me as farewell gifts. But this time, there was hard-earned money in my bank account. I had a car, I had a job that would start after the weekend, and I was being brave because I chose to be. I loved the rain, I loved the way people took trains and buses to games and coffee shops in Seattle, and we hiked up mountains until our muscles hurt, and then we go for burgers. I loved that it wasn't minus 40 and icy the way Saskatoon had been. I loved the pink cherry blossoms. The West Coast was damp and colorful, and I loved it. I had been exploring a little island in the Fraser River where there used to be a ferry when I found the railroad tie. I drove home through Fort Langley, as always watching for Sam and Dean's 67 Impala from Supernatural, the show that had me captivated at the time. The first few seasons were just about freedom to me, and I couldn't tell you if the show was about anything else. I don't remember any details of what was going on in my personal life on that exact day. Even though I can look back on that time with a feeling of nostalgia, there was also a lot about being 23 in a new city and a new province that was hard. It was hard fitting into a friend group that knew I was coming before I knew their names, and having had strange rumors started about me before I arrived. I would consider that to be something impossible if I were to find myself faced with the same situation today. At the time it didn't feel great, and looking back I can only admire that version of me for not letting it make me think it was a reason to change anything about myself to fit in. The job I'd moved to Langley for was at an industrial warehouse with 40 men and only one other woman. She would flick a switchblade out of her pocket when any of them walked by too closely. So when I started there, with my innocent face and so much naivety, the men made a game of seeing how uncomfortable they could make me with their jokes and comments and escalated the stakes every day. My supervisors had less humor and started writing me up for made-up mistakes to try to intimidate me. I had been brave to pack up my belongings into my car and drive across the country to start a new job and make new friends. I was brave to show up to work every day knowing how the day would go. I was even more brave to hold my head as high as I held it. I don't know if it was for those reasons, but I had this urge to make something beautiful happen. I took the railroad tie on my box of decorative vintage cameras and a roll of rough jute twine. I used the twine to wrap around the beam and anchored it to the wall like a shelf, and I lined up my cameras on display. I know how to hang heavy things, and I know that you need to find a stud to screw into, but I took too many shortcuts, and the shelf fell down immediately. I crumpled to the floor and sat cross-legged beside the pile of broken cameras and the stupid piece of wood, and I cried. I felt defeated. I was so disappointed at my failure and angry at the whole universe. It looks dramatic to me now, and I don't remember why I was on my last straw. But I can have empathy for that version of me because I know how much she could carry before she was sitting on the floor in tears. And this was that last straw. I just wanted to make something beautiful happen. The thing is, I had. I had done the thing I'd wanted to, and it stayed on the wall just long enough to snap a photo for proof, although not 1 second longer, and I'd made something beautiful happen. Ever since that day, I've held that phrase in my mind like a mantra. To make something beautiful happen. Anytime I start a project and it's not going very well, I remind myself of that line. Just make something beautiful happen. Anytime something turns out really great and I'm proud of the result, I remember that line. I made something beautiful happen. Anytime life seems like the garbage outweighs the good that's around me, I tell myself that line. Make something beautiful happen. Sometimes there's a reason for putting effort into a project, but there doesn't need to be. Sometimes that's the whole entire point of it. just to make something beautiful happen. Thank you for listening. This has been another episode from the Northwest Podcast. If you found this helpful, encouraging, or entertaining, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. To request a topic I haven't covered, or to chat about your unique project, you can email me at contact@tanusphoto.com or head to my website, tanusphoto.com. You'll also find past episodes and resources there to help you navigate your website design and marketing projects. Chat soon. As you know, my main job is photography, and more specifically, creating galleries of content for businesses to use in their marketing and on their websites. Since I've decided it's spring, even though the weather and the calendar are saying otherwise, it's time to break some other rules too. For a limited time, my content refresh sessions are for everyone, not just clients who already have a gallery from a previous full session. Rule broken. I generally don't offer discounts on photo sessions. That's kind of a rule, so you know what that means. $100 discount on content refresh sessions. Regularly $350, these sessions will be just $250 for a few weeks. Plus, your gallery will be automatically social media optimized. It's an add-on. I like to do it as a treat. Do you know what we don't like? Travel fees. So we won't have any of those while we're breaking rules. Within the Okanagan, of course, let's not get too silly. If you live anywhere else, you know what I always say, I will travel to the moon for you, if you cover the cost. We are going to follow rules again on the actual first day of spring, so this offer ends Tuesday, March 19. So let's make lots and lots of magic happen before that. To book your spring content refresh session and take advantage of the discounted rate, visit my website, tanusphoto.com, and the pop-up will give you the links to book or to learn more about what's included and extra add-ons. If you have questions, my emails are open for chats. My email is contact@tanusphoto.com. I can't wait to start your gallery.